Good evening and welcome to another edition of Tigers Roar. I'm Tommy Krysan of Pelican Sports TV. Appreciate you being tuned in live on a Wednesday night. 2 full hours of Tigers Roar coming right at you. As always, Chris Landry, NFL scout, Fox Sports football analyst. Chris, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, Tommy. It's never a dull moment.
Never a dull moment. Shortly after lunchtime today in Baton Rouge, word began traveling around. I want to credit the LSU student newspaper, the Daily Reveille, for being the first to come out with the story of a couple of suspensions. A third name was added to that. We've got the very latest as we know it as we sit here live on a Wednesday night. We do remind you this show is replayed in different markets across the South, Mississippi Gulf Coast on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, excuse me. So if you're catching it on one of them days, you got a replay. We're live every Wednesday night, 8 to 10 p.m. The very latest, Harold Simon, Spencer Ware, Tyrann Mathieu suspended for the contest against Auburn Saturday afternoon in Tiger Stadium. Les Miles met with the media, which he normally does on a Wednesday night after practice anyway. Tonight, of course, a little more attention to it with the suspensions being announced today. To say the very least, Chris, he didn't say anything. I mean, and as you indicated before we went on air, might even confuse things a little bit more. But in some ways, he cannot comment. There are laws and regulations that prevent him from saying certain things. But he didn't confirm anything, but he certainly didn't deny anything either. If you try to play the semantics game or you try to read between the lines, all indications are, to me, I'm speaking for myself and me only here and Pelican Broadcasting, it appears that this is a one-game suspension, that these three players will not play against Auburn. And, of course, we'll know more definitively as time goes forward, but it looks like a one-game suspension.
Well, and, you know, I'm told this is not a Les Miles suspension, it's a university suspension. If it indeed has, as it has been reported, that it is a failed drug test, then and if it is a second one, then that is an automatic one. Now, I think there's, and I hear the same thing, that there is not likely to be a suspension for the Alabama game. Nothing definitive, and I think one of the reasons, a couple of reasons why Les Miles does not want to mention it. One, it is a topic that you don't want to go down that path where you have to discuss it, something that is, it's going to be cloaked as it should be, as an internal team matter, and because you can't talk about drug policies or anything like that. The other thing is you don't want to necessarily come out and say this guy's not going to be there, not going to, you know, it's kind of like the injury situation. So it's going to play out. I expect that there's going to be a release at some point between now and game time, that we will get something official. But certainly that is the understanding within the walls of the LSU Athletic Department, that's what has taken place. I think there is some debate, I can tell you, from the SEC office, from LSU, as to, because of the fact that we don't know quite the details, first positive test, second positive test. Second positive test, folks, means an automatic suspension of up to 15 to 20% of game activity, which would make it 1.8 games, which creates a lot of confusion as to exactly what that classified. There is some belief that, and this is a university athletic department policy, there is some disagreement as to exactly what the leeway is, one game or two game and what have you. So that part of it is not clear to me at this point. But based upon what I've been told is that there's very little chance that they're going to be suspended for the Alabama game unless it's basically forced or out of their hands.
Well, here's a question I have for all of us, me included, that I think is an unknown, unless you know better here, Chris. The 15 to 20% suspension, is that based on 15 to 20% of the entire schedule, or is it based on remaining games on the schedule? Because that would be a significant difference, because there's 5 games remaining on the schedule, because you can't assume the SEC championship. Correct. And while they are bowl eligible, technically there's still only 5 games on the schedule, which means 20% of that is one game. I can do that Holy Cross math for everybody. So do you know, and I had that question thrown to me, my phone's been blowing up all evening like yours.
It's been asked. I don't have a definitive answer. My understanding has always been the season. You're right, you can't assume that, which is where the little bit of a gray area is. But it even goes further than that. There is some subjectivity to it. Just because it's written that way doesn't mean that they can't say, well, in our view, this warrants a one-game suspension, even though it is determined that, well, it's a 1.8, because it's a minimum of 15%, maximum of 20%. So you got those numbers you're dealing with. But then, from what I've understanding late today, since we got off the air at the radio, is there's maybe some leeway as to where they want to take it, and which is why I'm of the belief, as you are, that it's going to be one game and not two.
Okay.
We'll see.
This brings us to a couple of other topics for you and I to discuss here. Again, the very latest on the situation with LSU football here on Tigers Roar. First question, this is not the first off-the-field situation ever, and it's not unique to LSU, certainly, but since the Cotton Bowl, there's been a string of things for LSU off the field. Some that got national attention, some that didn't, some that didn't even get a whole lot of local attention until well after the fact, such as the deal with Brad Wing and with Zach Mettenberger. Is this indications that this program maybe needs some stricter lessons on what you do and what you don't do to the entire team?
Well, one thing, there's public perception, which is not good. When you're number one in the country, you're gonna. It's a bigger story than if you're.
Yeah,
you're not.
The LSU's 2-5 right now.
It's not as big of a story.
It doesn't reach ESPN today.
It's there, but now it's because what is it? Will they be available for the game of the century this year? Alabama, LSU. I mean, that makes it more of it. So you got that. I mean, just to give you an idea, on my way from my home to here, I had 3 phone calls from buddies in the NFL, prominent people that know I'm an LSU guy. I get the ribbing, which is not about me getting a ribbing of hey, what's going on there? And I'm, off the cuff. It's just kind of in fun, but it's certainly, it's the public perception is out there. I said this on the radio today. I'm a believer in this. This is just what I believe. It doesn't make me right. I do believe you always get this. A coach can't be with a player all the time. They can teach them, but you can't. You can lead the horse to water. You can't make them drink. And all that's true. I do believe how you discipline, how you demand respect for your fellow teammates, for your coaches, for the program, for your family, all those things is, I believe that particularly young people, but even in my days in the NFL, that you have to hold players accountable. And I think that everything on being on time for class, being on time for meetings, to not cutting curfew, all those things are important. They're important for a reason. There's a right way to do things, there's a wrong way to do things. And it's not about being holier than thou or Pollyanna. They're things that you have to do. And I think there's certainly, has there been a pattern? Yes. Is it the only place that's had this pattern? No. But yeah, I do think, there's no other way than to look and say that these 3 young men exercise not just poor judgment, but
careless.
Show lack of respect for their coaches, for their teammates, for their university, the whole program, fan base, everything.
Their families.
Their families, more important than any. There's no way around that. Now, why is that? I think that I've always grown up in an environment, football-wise, where strict discipline is the way to go, in my view. The fear of God is in you that you would never consider to do anything. Even though there was a 1 in a trillion chance of getting caught, you'd just be scared to death. And you would have that type of respect that you wouldn't want to, you have to look yourself in the mirror and know that you did something that your coach would be disappointed. That concerns me. That concerns me more than any. Kids will be kids. Kids will do things. But I think when you've got a lot at stake, individually, collectively as a team, there's a problem. Now, there's certainly a lot to this, and more will come out and whatnot. But there's certainly been a pattern of things, some which have come to light, some which haven't, that I think are maybe warning signs. And I do believe that if you don't handle the loose ends, it's when you have, and we haven't had this in a while because we hadn't had close games, game management problems on the field. If you have football staff that's making 3,000 phone calls to a recruit, I mean, that's not going 58 miles an hour in the 55-mile-an-hour speed zone. That's going 100 in the 50. That's abusive. That's just not being on top of things. And then, is it a fault I don't know that it's fault. I think it's a responsibility and a demand that you must have and a presence that you must have, a respect level that the way I grew up and the way I believe as a coach, you're either going to respect the rules and you're going to act accordingly or you will not be a part of it. Period. There's no third option.
All right, that brings up a couple of things. Number one, and I don't want to turn this into a commentary on society, but the old adage, the cliche, until the penalty is severe enough, you don't prevent the crime. Until, as you said, that hot button or that fear that no matter what, that you're not going to drive 100 miles an hour, or you're not going to walk in the grocery store and leave without paying for your stuff, or you're not going to fail a drug test, allegedly, or whatever. And if you're an LSU player, they don't have that fear in them.
Obviously
and then
not.
After the situation with Josh Johns and Jordan Jefferson, if you're a player on this team, kids are kids, and you see that these two guys, who had felony charges brought against them and then reduced, thrown out in the case of Josh Johns, and the next day the guy's back at practice and he's scoring a touchdown 2 days later in a football game, does that tell a player, well, if I do fail this test, or I'll be politically correct, if I do violate team rules, I'm not going to have to pay a real big penalty. Look what happened to Jordan Jefferson. Look what happened to Josh Johns. Other situations, other players that are still on this roster have been in trouble in previous years with different skirmishes with the law, if you will. So, I don't know. Maybe it has to go back to Les Miles and say he needs to issue a statement that this is what's accepted, this is what's unacceptable, and if it's not accepted, you're not a part of this program, to put that fear in them. And I think that's where this thing is getting to, because it almost makes the fan, the supporter of LSU, say, what's going to be next? What's going to be next week? What's going to be 2 weeks from now? Because this is not an isolated incident. In itself it is, but the number of incidents continues to trickle out of this football program.
Problems will happen. It will happen. That's part of being a head coach. You're going to deal with it. As an assistant coach, you deal with it. It's how you deal with those problems. It's how punitive you are. I've always learned that players have to know what you mean and know that you mean it. And if they don't know what you mean, or if they know what you mean, but if they don't know that you mean it, then I think it creates some wiggle room. I think whether a certain act is, in the punishment for that act should be X or XYZ, that's debatable. But I would say this, that if it is a pattern and you have different situations, it could be a sign that maybe things are not done. Now, let me just mention this too, because I know this is important. I know you like to be exact on this too. We don't know in this case, because we don't know, we believe, and I've heard that this has been the case, that a positive test has been taken. We don't know for what. We've heard what the speculation is for what. I'm not going to get in it. I'm not an expert in this, but I've been told that certain substances are in your system for a long time. Like, so, for example, and I don't know if this is true or not. I'm just going to go on that. For example, it could have been it could stay in your system for 60 days or 30 days. So it's possible that we're not necessarily saying that somebody did something after the bar fight and whatever that maybe it could have been in the system. Now, I don't know that. I don't know. Well, I'm not a medical expert, but it's a fair point to bring out that we don't know, but we know that obviously there has been some issues and some problems that warranted and will warrant this suspension.
I have reason to believe that LSU internally knew about this issue on Monday morning, because Chris Lecoq of our Pelican Sports TV staff and one of the directors and producers of this show, he does the player interviews that we show to you on Tigers Roar on Wednesday nights. On Monday after the lunch with Les thing, he goes and does that. Well, he didn't think anything of it Monday, but today after this story comes out, he goes, hey, TK, Ware and Matthew were not there for player interviews this Monday, and that's the first Monday all year that they haven't been. Because keep in mind, not every player goes to that. Some of them are in class. Some of them got to go to the training room, rehab, have an appointment with a teacher or a counselor or a coach. But generally, you get that same group of players who have free time in that 1:30, 2 o'clock frame on a Monday that meet with the media. These two weren't there that day. So what I'm suspecting happened is then they didn't practice, and then they didn't practice, and then all of a sudden the Reveille, somebody working on that staff, had enough confidence to go with the story today. That's the first place I saw it, and many people saw it, and then the phone started ringing like crazy. Now, here's a whole other thing, if I may, and again, we don't know for a fact. We don't know when, if in fact it's a drug test, we don't know. It could be 3-4 weeks ago, and the test was taken, and the results were just known to LSU on Monday morning or Sunday or Saturday night, or who knows. Obviously, the kids did play. Now, question that you and I got on radio today that I think is worth bringing up right now, this will not be something that could go backwards and cost LSU victories. Like we've seen other teams have to vacate victories, Southern Cal, Ohio State. There have been other schools that have had to do that due to problems, not of this nature, but NCAA problems. So LSU's, they're 7-0, 4-0 going into the Auburn contest, and that's not going to change.
Playing an ineligible player, folks, and going back, whether it's playing Reggie Bush and finding out through 2 or 3 years later that he was ineligible, you didn't know it, that takes victories away. This is a university policy. There is NCAA testing, by the way, and it's very similar along the lines of what LSU's drug testing is. But no, you're exactly right. That's not going to do. The one thing that I will mention is that I think it's important to understand is that an automatic suspension is part of the LSU drug policy. A suspension is only administered automatically as a positive second test. So, and as we also talked on radio about this, if somebody tests positive because of and I believe it is the Buckley Act or it's something of the Privacy Act, what normally happens, obviously the player knows. It's not widely known that a player tested positive on the first time. So it could be, it's in the NFL policy. A lot of times you don't know. In college, my experience is, and I checked again after we got off the radio just to make sure, normally you find out the player will admit to it for his coach. And normally, it's if somebody tests positive, one of two things is the case. He's just fooling around and whatever, experimenting, and you got to make sure that you understand that doesn't happen again. Or two, you have a problem that you need to be handled. You can't control yourself. So I think the concern is, if it's true, as I've been told with inside the LSU Athletic Department, that this is a university suspension just by the fact that it's a second positive. If that is true, then you wonder how much did they know on the first test, which is kind of standard procedure, and what did they do to try to correct that problem? Because if we're down this road, obviously not enough, or did they not know? Why did there's some issues there that just goes along the line of some loose ends there that I think that certainly I think it's fair for every LSU fan to have concerns. Let me say this: how is it going to affect this team? One thing I will say is they've handled adversity swimmingly, and with a much better team than Auburn, much more talented team, I would not expect it to have a significant effect. I don't know. We're not going to know until it plays out, but based upon past experiences, I wouldn't think it would. But I think that's maybe beside the point of what we're talking about. Is it's something. My biggest issue is I'm a process-oriented person. I think anybody that's heard me on radio and here is I'm a big believer that there's a right way and a wrong way to do things. And how you prepare every day, how you focus on every snap in practice, much less games, is important. It's building good, positive habits as opposed to focusing on things that are not things that are good for your body, good for your future, good for your team, good for your, and to me that would be the concern is, do you have a little bit of a waywardness approach from a selfishness standpoint? That would be a bigger concern to me. And I throw that out as, I don't know the answer to that. I know it's a very talented team, and certainly with a lot of expectations for this team, rightly so. It would be fair to be disappointed as a fan out there to wonder why the focus is not where it obviously needs to be.
Two other points I want to make while we continue to give you the very latest on these suspensions of Tyrone Matthews, Spencer Ware, and Tharold Simon at LSU. Certainly for the Auburn game this Saturday. Going forward, not sure, but indications are this may be a one-game suspension. That's not definite. That's not an official announcement yet. Two things I want to bring up, Chris. Obviously, you've coached in the NFL. You've coached at the collegiate level. I was fortunate enough to play collegiate baseball. I'm thinking of the teammates right now, you know, that got let down. You know, I remember playing college baseball. You got a guy who got suspended or flunked off the team, and you're like, wait a minute, man, we needed you to play shortstop this year, you know? Yeah, we got a backup, but you would, I mean, if you're a member of this LSU team, you use the word, the fans are disappointed. I think the teammates
Absolutely.
have to be disappointed on three guys that would have got a majority of the snaps offensively, defensively, respectively this Saturday afternoon are not going to be out there. You know, they've let their family down. They've let their teammates down, the coaching staff, the university, the fan base and community who's taking it nationwide now at Fox Sports and everywhere else. So, I mean, that's what I don't like that. That's a disrespect thing that somehow I hope that gets rectified in the locker room. Yeah, it's selfish, and I hope that can get rectified in the locker room. Now, the other thing that I don't like, this tends to cast a bad shadow over those who didn't violate team rules, didn't allegedly fail a drug test, doing the right thing, you know, doing what the coaching staff tells you to do, being on time. You know, there's most of the guys are doing what they're supposed to do out there. This is not a University of Miami program going awry like somebody commented to me over the phone this afternoon. I mean, they thought this whole program. You know, you put 100 guys together, you're gonna have a couple guys that are gonna bend the rules and push the envelope and cross the line at times. Here's a case of three guys we know that have crossed some type of line that, in order, big enough that they're not gonna play against Auburn on Saturday in an SEC contest in front of national TV. So I mean, it's mind-boggling that these guys would do this to their families, their teammates. But you know, I was a kid once. I guess I can go back and find a thing or two I'm probably not real proud of, like all of us can. I'm not pointing fingers in one direction here. I'm as guilty as anybody for making some bad choices over the years. But man, but I was never the star player on the #1 team in the country either. I was a middle of the pack player on a middle of the pack team in college.
Well, I think I think it's, you always stress as a coach to the focus, where the focus needs to be. It needs to be taking care of your academics, taking care of getting prepared for your upcoming game this week, not the one in 2 weeks. Not, don't get distracted off the target. And it's pretty obvious that you're having some of that. Now, again, it hasn't affected most people. I guess a lot of people could care less as long as they win, and they're only concerned about this as how it might affect in the game. But I believe that how you do things, how you live things and live the game and live the correctly is going to determine your ultimate success, and I think that includes winning key games and pressure moments. So time will tell on that. Obviously, will be some changes. We'll talk a little bit about how this will likely change their personnel as it relates to Auburn and who will be starting with, obviously, starting corner, starting nickel, 2 starting members of the secondary in the sub package. Are going to likely be gone.
And we'll get into all of that tonight. And certainly, as Curly would say, I don't want to beat a dead horse to death, but I got one more comment. I don't know the answer to what I'm about to say, but I hope there's a side of Les Miles that when that locker room door is closed or he's in that private meeting, whether it's with 1 player, 3 players, or 120 players, that he is as mad as I think he really is about all of this, because it reflects on him. Sure. And he has confidence in these guys. He puts trust in these guys. He puts authority into these guys with their different committees and things on this team internally. I hope there's, and the camera will never see it. Don't want to see it. Nobody should see it. But I hope there's that side of Les Miles that when that door is closed, he is, excuse my description, he's raising 100 kinds of hell in that room, that they get a message that this cannot be tolerated anymore, and that if anything happens, you just won't be a part of this program anymore. I remember Skip Bertman through Albert Bell, who was a Major League Baseball player for a long time, all of his baseball team to show that you couldn't take certain things and be a part of this. You were around when Bill Arnsparger got rid of Stan Humphries. Stan went on to quarterback a national championship team at Louisiana Monroe, then known as Northeast Louisiana. But Coach Arnsparger had to send a message to the rest of the team that whatever line he crossed back then was not going to be tolerated. And I remember when Bell was thrown off the LSU baseball team and when Humphries off football, everybody, how are we going to survive without him? Well, LSU baseball, football was there long before Albert Bell and Stan Humphries ever got there. LSU football was here long before Matthew, Ware, and Simon ever got here, and will be here long after. So I hope there's that side of Les Miles that from this point forward puts an end to this, or if someone going forward decides to cross the line,
Yeah.
they can,
Because they're all going to be watching.
they can find another place to go to school and play
Right.
football or do whatever.
Well, yeah, because they're all going to be watching, and they were watching in the previous incident, and there comes a point where you have to stop apologizing for what happened and making corrections or corrective measures to prevent this from happening. You know, when talking to NFL players at the combine, running the combine, and overseeing everything, including the drug testing, I always tell players, because at the combine, NFL players who are not yet part of the NFL, literally that test, that drug testing that we give them at the combine, it's their first NFL drug test. And if you test positive, you're in the NFL drug testing policy. It's the strike one. We used to tell players. We used to tell them, all of them when we'd bring them in. We'd bring them in shifts. And I tell them at the seminar every night over dinner, said there are two reasons, only two reasons why you could test positive when you know you're going to get tested like this. You're either stupid or you have a problem and you can't control it. And you know, you've got to deal with either one of them. And there's no C. There's no A, B, C option. It's one or the other. And I think that this is the same thing applies here. You're either not very smart or you got a problem, and if it's the second time, it's a problem that hadn't been handled, whether it's the stupidity or the substance abuse issue, and it's something that needs to be handled, and certainly from the top, administratively, and we'll see how this plays out. But certainly wish everybody the best. It's unfortunate to have, what did we start the season, before the season, it led into that, before the Oregon game, and now it's going to be the topic that's front page, you know, front
Tomorrow,
headline news. It's the topic, and will be, because mainly they decided to not say anything today, so it's going to live until tomorrow, or live until Friday, or live until, you know, and then it's going to be a story again, and then it's going to be, okay, it's only one game, and why is it only one? It's going to monopolize this bye week, and then, so we'll see how it plays out.
And a few minutes before 8 o'clock, right before we went on the air, I checked, and at that time there had been no official release from LSU or from Miles or from the Sports Information Department, Athletic Department, Communications Office. Nothing official has come from LSU yet. Recapping quickly for you, we know we've babbled about this for a while, but Tyrann Mathieu, Spencer Ware, Darrell Simon suspended for the game against Auburn. Indications are it's a one-game suspension. That's not known to be fact yet, but they will not play against Auburn. Les Miles, meeting with the media at about 6:20, 6:25 today, said it was an internal matter, and he really offered no further comments of substance after that. So that's where that is. That's what it is, and that's all we know now. We got a lot on the show tonight. We're going to recap the victory over Tennessee. We're going to get you ready for Auburn. Going to get a breakdown on LSU. We'll talk to Brian Lazar of TigerBait.com. We will have a run through the LSU Athletic Department, as we always do. Chris will talk about who will get the touches that Ware would have got offensively, who will get the defensive snaps that Matthew and Simon won't get. We'll get into all that kind of stuff as well. We'll also have our Bryson Law Firm stat of the week. That'll come up to you a little bit later. A lot of stuff for you on tonight's program. We'll remind you about Pelican Sports Radio, Monday through Fridays from 3 to 4 p.m. on the Score 1210 a.m. in Baton Rouge. Streams on the internet at thescore1210.com. That's Monday through Friday, 3 to 4 p.m. And tomorrow and each and every Thursday, it's the Chris Landry Show, your weekly look at college and pro football from the man that's been there and done that. Same station, the Score 1210 a.m., score1210.com. Chris, give everybody a hint of what you'll have on this week's edition of the Chris Landry Show.
Well, we'll give any updates, certainly, on this situation with LSU. We'll talk a little bit about how it might affect the LSU-Auburn game. We'll go into Auburn like we're going to do some tonight. We're going to talk about some of the other matchups, big matchups in college football. We've got Michigan State hosting Wisconsin. We're going to do that. A number of the key NFL matchups, we'll get into that. Get into the film grade segment, what I've picked up off of film grading this week, and college football and the NFL. So all of that, all the latest news around the world of college football and the NFL.
And don't forget, immediately after the LSU-Auburn game, it's the Phones First WJBO Pelican Sports TV post-game show with Richard Condon and me, Tommy Chrysan. When that game clock says 000, give us 4, 5, 6 minutes. We're on the air with the simulcast. WJBO Radio, 1150 AM, WJBO.com. If you're in the parking lot, you're in your cars in traffic, get that radio on WJBO. Phones first. We get your phone calls going right after that game, immediately following that game. If you're at home, it's Pelican Sports TV, Baton Rouge, Lafayette, and New Orleans, and on the internet at PelicanSportsTV.com. Again, it'll be about 6 p.m. Saturday, give or take when that game exactly says 000 on the game clock. Do tune in and spread the word about the post-game show. To keep up with any and all of that, it's our Facebook page is Pelican Broadcasting. That's the Facebook page. Keeps you up with Pelican Sports TV, known for the hunting and the fishing and the outdoor activities, and tons of local programming meeting the needs of the state of Louisiana, in particular South Louisiana. The YouTube page with highlights and clips. The Twitter account is at Pelican Sports. Keep up with it. Hey, as we head to break here, I do want you to know you're going to get a little musical entertainment from Louisiana Music Hall of Famer Debbie Traylor. A little music taking you into the break, and then we'll be back with more. Chris Landry, Tommy Chrysan. This is Tigers Roar. Spread the roar. Pelican Sports TV, Baton Rouge, Lafayette, and New Orleans.
It's a male thing.
Hello, I'm Rohan Davey, and you're watching Pelican Sports TV.
Hi, I'm attorney Kerry Bryson. My law firm focuses specifically on helping people try to solve their IRS tax problems. Lately, so many new out-of-state companies are popping up claiming that if you send them money, they can resolve your IRS problems. Well, what happens if they don't? Do you hire an attorney? Maybe you should start with a local attorney that's already handled hundreds of IRS cases right here in Louisiana. When you hire the Bryson Law Firm, you won't be speaking long distance or sending money to some out-of-town high-pressure salesman. You'll meet with us in person at our office right here in Baton Rouge. Your first visit is completely free and confidential, and we'll tell you on the spot exactly how much it'll cost. So if you're hiring a company to resolve your IRS wage levies, bank levies, or tax liens, check their reputation first, then call me, Kerry Bryson, or go to BrysonLawFirm.com. If you're a Louisiana resident and you have an IRS problem, hire a Louisiana attorney, Kerry Bryson.
Please join the Baton Rouge International School, offering an international academic program from preschool through 12th grade, for an open house Saturday, October 29th, 3 to 5 p.m. Information at brintl.com or call 293-4338.
Hello, my name is Debbie. Welcome to Debbie's Bridal, a formal affair. Come see the many great lines we carry in bridal, bridesmaids, mothers, flower girls, tuxes, and more. We also carry over 25 top designer lines in debutante gowns, Mardi Gras, pageant, and prom. Come meet me and my staff with over 30 years of bridal and pageant experience. Debbie's Bridal, a formal affair, Burnside and Gonzales, where service matters.
The family dental practice of Dr. Farrell Furget Jr. and our highly trained staff are dedicated to providing care and treatment to our patients of all ages in all aspects of dental care. 23 years of experience and advanced training in cosmetic and restorative dentistry, TMJ, and treatment of snoring and sleep apnea allows Dr. Furget to assist you in achieving the best in dental health. Call us today at 292-9700 to schedule your initial evaluation, because we know how to make you smile.
We continue with Tigers Roar live on a Wednesday night. If you're catching us Thursday, Friday, or Saturday, you got a replay going. We appreciate that. PelicanSportsTV.com, Pelican Sports TV, Baton Rouge, Lafayette, and New Orleans. Got a World Series score for you. 2-2, bottom of the fifth in St. Louis. Rangers and Cardinals. A lot of folks watching that. A lot of people more worried about LSU. Let's take a look at our Bryson Law Firm Stat of the Week. Brought to you by the BrysonLawFirm.com. If you have any type of IRS problem or an issue, Kerry Bryson. He's got an office in Baton Rouge, Lafayette, and New Orleans. You see the phone numbers on your screen, or you can go to brysonlawfirm.com to get complete information. Here's the Tiger stat of the week. In 420 minutes of football action this year, LSU has trailed for just 6 minutes and 33 seconds. LSU hasn't trailed since the second quarter of the Oregon game in week 1. That stat brought to you by the Bryson Law Firm, BRYSON lawfirm.com. Any IRS issue you have, call Kerry Bryson and his staff, Baton Rouge, Lafayette, and New Orleans. Chris, that is an impressive stat.
It is. It's certainly indicative of how this LSU team has played. They've dominated their opponents, and some opponents haven't been really good. And even when they've started off slow, they've just been able to just put people away.
That's how you end up 7-0, 4-0 in conference, winning all your games by double digits, right?
Absolutely.
All right, let's recap for you the victory over the Tennessee Volunteers. Game stat comparison. LSU dominates in the stats, in particular in first downs. Total yards, 383 to 239. Look at the time of possession. Tennessee only took 19 snaps in the second half. Another key stat, 2 turnovers for Tennessee. LSU 0. LSU's only turned the ball over 3 times in 7 games. That is remarkable numbers. Probably a few too many penalties for LSU, and Coach Miles is liking 8 for 61 yards. But domination, LSU over Tennessee. Clearly they were the dominant team, 38-7 victory.
They started off a little slow on both sides of the ball, did LSU. They didn't get off blocks particularly well, or block particularly well offensively. Tennessee, I thought, played hard despite being undermanned. I thought that as the game wore on, eventually, in fact, if you go in the first half, they outgained LSU in the first half. Then the second half, as you kind of alluded to, Tennessee didn't have the football because LSU just controlled it. 3 possessions, 66 yards is what Tennessee had in the second half. So as this game wore on, you could see the physical dominance of LSU, and they just, while they didn't play particularly well early, you could see the physical dominance start to wear on this Tennessee team, and that was the ultimate difference. They controlled the line of scrimmage, and as you mentioned, dominated the time of possession. They really wore out Tennessee a little bit differently than they did Florida. Against Florida, they ran a lot of power sets. Remember talking about the 2 tight end sets? They ran some 3 wides, a lot of spread sets in this game, but still ran power. Really Tennessee struggled to defend the option routes, the speed sweeps, the speed options. They really had a lot of success in a lot of different areas. A couple of big drives. You see the big play that I thought, you want to say, turned the game around. It was the first biggest play of the game, as this is the longest interception return in LSU history that didn't score. It was just an impressive performance. Not so much in terms of effort early, assignment early, but just you could see the physical domination of this team. Watching this team and watching Alabama every week, you see maybe a little bit of a slow start, but you see the physical domination and the superiority with this team's talent level, particularly with this LSU team that just really can overwhelm people.
Let's get some comments from Coach Miles and the players about the Tennessee game this past week.
I just want you to know we show up in Knoxville, Tennessee, and the stadium is packed, and it's packed full of a great minority of our fans and friends, and I can just tell you how much fun it is for us as a team to travel and see the great loyal LSU following.
I think that first quarter is probably the worst first quarter I've ever had in ever playing football, and it's funny, Coach Frank is kind of the one who saved the day for me, because I was trying to play a little too finesse, thinking a little too much, and he just told me, fundamentals of football, just get low, just play scrappy, just get low and drive your feet. And after that, I started feeling comfortable. We started playing better as a line, and that second half, that's like I said, that's what we like to do. It's kind of like waves on a rock. It just slowly erodes the defense, just wear them down, and then with the strength and conditioning program that Coach Moffitt has in here, we pride ourselves on being second-half players and not getting tired. And so we try to keep hitting them until they don't want to hit anymore.
Offensively, we score 3 touchdowns in the second half. We have possessions, a 12-play drive, 66 yards, 7 minutes, a 16-play drive, 99 yards, 8 minutes and 44 seconds, a 10-play drive, 65 yards, 6-0-8. It takes the life out of your opponent. You secure victory. It puts our defense on the field for a minimal number of snaps in the back end of the game, and we end our opponent's chance at victory.
Oh, I mean,
so
he talked about in the meeting earlier that we had. He was proud, offense drove the ball down from the half-yard line, to show a lot of strides and what we can do offensively.
It felt real good to get in the end zone. It's a great feeling. Like I said, I dedicate my whole season and everything to my family. So that was for my mom, dad, and my younger brother. And I look forward to keep giving them more game balls and just making this team and being a better part of this team and helping this team be more successful.
That's something we were all pretty proud of. That second half, I don't know if I've ever been a part of anything like that in my life. I think we had 3 drives, 20-something minutes of possession. They were all touchdowns. But to get that 99-yard drive, that meant a lot to us because I've never been on one. I don't know if any of the other guys have. And it wasn't like we had a really big play or anything in there. It was kind of a methodical, just grind them down, march down that field.
Chris Falk is the SEC offensive lineman, and it's kind of nice that some of the big guys that you have success and you move the football on the ground and you move the football in the air, and it's it's kind of a quiet position. And Will Blackwell gets nominated. Certainly Chris Falk this week. We're thankful. We appreciate those people that are noticing. Chris Falk's had a great fall to this state and certainly played very, very well in this last game.
Coach Miles mentioned Chris Falk being the Southeastern Conference lineman of the week. You see some of the numbers: 12.5 knockdown blocks on 69 snaps. Second consecutive week that an LSU offensive lineman was named SEC Player of the Week. Falk has continued to get better, Chris.
Well, Falk, Blackwell, Hebert, Williford, Hurst played all 5. They were the Warriors. They played every snap in this game. So Chris Falk has played very well. I think that offensive line's gotten better and better, and we've seen the depth get tested quite a bit this year. But I think they've responded very well, and you got T-Bob Hebert, P.J. Lonergan's going to be healthy this week, or certainly healthy enough to play and start. And you got T-Bob Hebert that's back in his reserve role that can play center or guard, which the way this season is going, you almost like to have him in that John Havlicek role where he can come off the bench and slide in because it's good likelihood that he's going to be needed there.
Coach Miles did say at his press meeting with the press this afternoon at about 6:20 or so that T-Bob did work at guard at practice today, so that would tell us Lonergan's back in there. If something happened to Lonergan and a T-Bob, Will Blackwell would become the center.
Correct,
so,
correct.
He would be number 3. Had that question on radio earlier in the week. Now it's time for Auburn. Here's a talk from Coach Miles and the players about the SEC West matchup, the Auburn game last year. Of course, we know Auburn won the BCS title last year. Here are those comments now.
We'll look forward to that. We look forward to be back in Tiger Stadium. We look forward to playing another Western Division opponent, and we will be challenged, and we look forward to meeting that challenge.
Oh, we're just coming off Tennessee right now. We're going to go watch film, get better, make our corrections, and then we're going to look at Auburn.
You can believe me, I'm not worried about any Alabama game, anything like that. We have a great opponent this week that I don't care how you slice it, finds a way to win. No matter what. It seems like they play in all these close games, and they're the ones that always come out on top. And so for us to be looking ahead to any game beyond Auburn it'd be irresponsible. And but that's a great part about this team is that there's such an intense focus that I don't think anybody on the team's doing that. And everybody knows our mission is Auburn this Saturday in Tiger Stadium, and we got to take care of them.
I think that's the view. It almost has to be the view that you look at an opponent and you recognize that there's it's a different team. It certainly it resembles that great team that they had a year ago, and but I don't think revenge is the issue. I think it's the to want to compare and to prepare to have victory, and that's it. And I don't think it has anything to do with really what the score was in last year's game.
I think we're going to focus, on last year's game. We kind of messed up our plans that we had, and we're going to look forward to a great challenge this week also, and look forward for a great opportunity coming in, trying to take what we want, and we're just going to go out and execute our game plan well.
It was kind of embarrassing coming off a loss like that and giving up that many rushing yards, knowing that we wanted to go to the national championship and SEC championship. When you lose a game like that, you really got to change your mindset, because when that team beats you, you hoping that another team would beat them. So you basically, the rest of the season, you praying and hoping that that team loses to give you a shot in the SEC championship. So coming into this game, we know that we control our own destiny, and we know we got to make the plays to win the game.
I knew when our guys had lost to them last year, it was very emotional. A lot of guys were sad, and after that game, it kind of seemed like LSU just quit playing because they had their mindset on the national championship. And our play started to regress, mess around, slip up, lose against Arkansas. I don't plan on having that same fate this year. I plan on us guys being more focused and more dominant in our play.
We learned from it, but we lost, like you said, that hurts. And we was in a good position before we lost for them. We was undefeated. I guess you can say it's going to be a little revenge coming at us.
Our line play could have been better. The offense as a whole, sometimes last year just seemed to struggle at points. And, obviously that's a real frustrating game, and it's a real sore spot for all of us. But it's something that, I'm looking forward to this game Saturday. It's going to be a lot of fun. I feel like we've improved. They still look strong on defense. So this is an SEC West opponent, and we got to come. We got to bring our A game, or we're going to be upset.
It's been a lot of close games between us and Auburn in present years, and I think that it's going to be a good game for the fans to see, because I know they're going to come in. They're coming in national championships last year, so we trying to get to that point. So there's going to be a lot of motion out there, and we just got to keep a straight head and keep ourselves in the game and make big plays.
Chris, the BCS rankings came out this past Sunday for the first time this fall, part of the Harrison Interactive Poll, which is something that you vote in. Quickly, before we get to some comments, tell everybody exactly what comprises the BCS rankings.
Well, it's three components. One of them is the Harris poll, which you mentioned, ex-coaches, the former coaches, former administrators, some media people, some people that are involved in football, like myself, about 155 of us, I believe. That's 1/3 of the component. The second third is current coaches that vote in the ESPN, I don't know, the ESPN USA Today poll. It's the coaches poll,
right.
but it's
Football
administered.
Coaches Association.
Yeah, administered by ESPN and USA Today. It's a current football coaches that vote in it. Then the third part of that process is computers. There's 6 computers that represent the one computer vote, and what they do is they take on every team the computer's highest ranking for that team and the lowest ranking, throw it out, and they average the other 4. So that's how the three components take place. Of course, as you mentioned, you could throw just a minuscule difference between LSU, Alabama, and Oklahoma. And folks, I tell you this, say this all the time, and I'll say this to our radio audience. Don't be surprised. LSU and Alabama wins this week, and then they both have a bye week, and Oklahoma is able to navigate a couple of wins, including one over Kansas State. Don't be surprised if Oklahoma moves ahead to number 1 in the bye week. Don't focus on that. At the end of the day, LSU, Alabama, Oklahoma, and Oklahoma State kind of control their fate, if you will. If they win out, they're going to play for the national championship. Now, Oklahoma and Oklahoma State play one another at December 3rd in the Bedlam game in Stillwater, and then LSU, Alabama play, of course, November 5th. And then if both teams win going into that game, both would have to win following that, including an SEC championship game. So a lot of football left. But the reality is, don't focus if you're one of the top 2 or 3 right now. It's not going to be an issue. I think if you're Clemson, I think if you're Wisconsin, I think if you're Stanford, yeah, you got to hope for some things to happen, because there's a ceiling there that I think is going to prevent you getting ahead of those 4 teams. But then all you can do if you're out there at any fan of any team is just hope your team wins.
We've heard football is a game of inches. The BCS rankings
Oh, my
is a
goodness.
game of millimeters and 1/60 of an inch.
Oh,
That's
it's just
how
amazing.
close it really, really
It
is.
really is.
There's no clear separation between those three,
Mm-hmm.
to say the least. Here's some comments from Coach Miles and the players about the #1 ranking in the BCS.
I think our team is honored with a compliment. I think more of a respect of the body of work that this team's accomplished. I don't think there's anybody in our room, or certainly in our building, that thinks that they've reached the position that they want to be in. Feel like we're holding a spot in some ways. Hope at some point in time we'll get an opportunity to claim it late in the year. But right now, considering, we're very pleased to be the #1 team.
We can't really have no thoughts on that. That's just a number. At the end of the day, we just gonna have to go to practice and, practice hard and get ready for the next opponent.
I mean, it's a big honor. Our football team has worked hard to get to this point. But it does. I don't think it means anything at all until the end of the year. We understand anybody can knock us off at any point.
Well, I mean, I really haven't focused too much on it. I think just titles that someone gives, on the outside. We got to still continue to play great football because it can change just like that. So we can't really key on it too much.
It's pretty exciting, but we still got a big target on our back, knowing that we're #1. So we're gonna get every team's best game. So we just got to come out there prepared. It's a great feeling. It's kind of good. A lot of people thought we weren't going to be ranked #1 in the BCS rankings because we don't put up the big numbers offensively. But the statistic that people really don't tend to is that we're very efficient in what we do. One of the best red zone teams in the country. When we throw the ball, we throw it very efficient. We make plays. And then also our completion ratio to attempts is very good this year, one of the best in the country. So when you add those three things to the table, it kind of outweighs, the total yards you put up in a game. And I guess the BCS stand has seen that, and they said, they have shown enough to be the #1 team.
Yeah, we understand that we're blessed and we're in a good position right now, and we can't get complacent like I was saying earlier, because one game could ruin it for us. And like we was talking about, we were 7-0 last year, and Auburn beat us, and our title hopes were down the drain. So we just got to make sure we stay focused and do what we got to do.
I think I saw it on Twitter. It's nice, but it really doesn't mean anything, nothing at all to me. Like I've said multiple times before, playing in this conference, SEC West especially, if we win the games that we want to win, you're gonna be afforded any opportunities you're trying to get. So our schedule sets us up to be successful no matter where we're ranked, and we just got to go out there and execute.
But, just like those guys know, just like Auburn knows, doesn't matter what you're ranked, doesn't matter what ESPN says about you, doesn't matter what BCS says about you, doesn't matter what the fans think about you. When you're out there in between the lines, nobody can save you. So it's going to come out who the great players are. So that's why you really shouldn't pay attention to the BCS rankings or anything. Upsets happen all around the world every last Saturday and Thursday. People paying attention, getting caught up in the rankings. Got to stay focused.
We continue with Tigers Roar. We remind you we're live on Wednesday nights, 2 hours, 8 to 10 p.m. Spread the roar on Pelican Sports TV. If you're catching us Thursday, Friday, or Saturday, you got a replay going. We appreciate those who do watch the replay throughout South Louisiana and in New Orleans on WHNO TV at 5 p.m. on Fridays, Mississippi Gulf Coast, North Shore, Bayou Country. We appreciate you, but it all happens on a Wednesday night. When we come back, we got some comments on Auburn a little bit. Chris will get into Auburn a little bit. Still to come in hour number 2, Brian Lazar of TigerBait.com, an LSU breakdown, and then our weekly run through the LSU athletic department. With NFL scout and Fox Sports football analyst Chris Landry, I'm Tommy Kreis, and you are tuned to Pelican Sports TV, Baton Rouge, Lafayette, and New Orleans. This is Tigers Roar.